Right now, my mission is to support people to get free. And what I mean by that is the ability to be with what is, to trust in yourself, not to trust that everything is going to be okay, but to trust that even if it's not okay, I'm still there for me.
Welcome to Inner Source. I'm Dr. Sandra Dreisbach. Whether you're just beginning to explore your inner landscape or you've been doing this work for years and understand that transformation is a lifelong journey, this is your space. We're diving into real conversations about personal growth, shadow work, and what it actually takes to create lasting change from the inside out. Because the truth, your most powerful healing tool isn't out there somewhere. It's already within you. Let's connect to that inner source together.
The information shared on this podcast, our website, and other platforms may be triggering for some viewers and readers and is for informational, educational, and entertainment purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional medical, legal, or therapeutic advice. While we explore topics related to altered states of consciousness, we do not endorse or encourage illegal activities or substance use. Always research your local laws and consult qualified professionals for guidance. The content provided is, as is, and we are not liable for any actions taken based on the information shared. Stay supported and informed, act responsibly, and enjoy the podcast.
On this episode of Inner Source, I am very pleased to have Gaia Harvey-Jackson. I've known Gaia Harvey for a few years now, both as someone who helped me as a woman, as in transformational journeys and both groups, as well as one-on-one work for well over a year. So we'll talk about it on this show. But Gaia is a women's empowerment facilitator, ecstatic dance DJ, private coach who guides people on a profound journey to discover true inner freedom. What could be better for Inner Source? As co-founder of True Nature, a platform for women's events and retreats, co-director of Symbiotica Collective, a cooperative for consciousness-raising brands, and advisor to the UK Psychedelic Society, which is where I first met Gaia. Gaia brings together therapeutic frameworks, embodiment practices, and ancient ritual modalities. She creates brave and playful environments. If you have a chance to work with her, I would highly recommend it. You can explore your inner worlds. You learn to relate to yourself with kindness, connect with others from a place of truth and love. More than pleased to have her on this episode, where you can actually not just experience our relationship and friendship and connection over time, but also really get a sense of what a true guide she is to your inner source. Welcome, Gaia. I'm so happy and pleased to have you on the show. I cannot tell everyone who's listening to this, what love I have for this woman and what a gift she's been for my life. But I shouldn't front load it too much because I don't want you to feel too much pressure. But I know I've given a little bit of an introduction, but Gaia, would you want to say anything about yourself or about your general work in this space? How would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you for having me. So what would I say about myself and my practice? I have a multidisciplinary approach to healing, wholeness, wildness, and much of my work. So I'm a group work facilitator and coach, mostly doing programs on Dartmoor, which is a sort of big national park in the UK in the southwest. And it's got rivers and tors, which are sort of like hills with big stones on the top, and forests. And it's, very wild, a wild land. And much of my work is about looking at the ways that we have been conditioned away from our wildness and away from our authentic selves through ritual, through embodiment, through singing, through connecting with the land, through being together in community. It's about creating spaces for us to interrogate those narratives and create new scripts for ourselves, and doing that together so that we can find the safety in the group to be vulnerable and share our stories and be witnessed in our stories and find healing and connection and a source of empowerment that we can then take that out into our lives to then be change makers out in the world, whatever that looks like, right? Maybe it's just the way that you interact with your family is different and the ripple effects that has. And kind of the end of my work, I suppose, is a 9-month facilitator training that I run for women. So that's sort of the end of the journey not like the end of the journey, but yeah.
Well, it's just another form of the journey, right? Depends on what people are called
Yeah.
to do. And I love that it's 9 months, by the way. It has that gestational, right, aspect of it. And I love and there's a lot of conversation around what's rewilding, right, of people and how and rewilding of the divine feminine. And I know we came in relationship because of one of your workshops. But before I go there, and thank you for that, could you talk a little bit about your relationship with plants or psychedelics? Like, how did you end up coming into this work? Right, I know I originally encountered you through the Psychedelic Society of the UK,
Right.
and so and I know that's not where you're at now, but could you tell a little bit about like your authentic story?
I joined the Psychedelic Society in, I think it was 2018, 2017, something like that. I am very dear friends with Stephen Reed, who's the founder of the Psychedelic Society. And I think up until that point, I'd also been on my own journey of discovering meditation and tantra retreats, being a big partier. And actually, my introduction to psychedelics was very much through a recreational lens. When I met Stephen, actually, I met him in 2016, and he invited me to the first psychedelic experience weekend that the society were running. And they look very different to how they look now. That program has now gone on to become Alalaho, who, if you're in Europe, I highly recommend those as a source for psychedelic assisted retreats. So I went on that first weekend, and that's the first time I'd really used psychedelics in a ceremonial context and in a healing context, and just found that to be such a profound shift of kind of forgiveness, self-love, letting go of a past relationship. It's actually where I met my now husband. That was a very pivotal moment for me. And I think a year or two after that, I came on board the Psychedelic Society, supporting them to run their events, because at that time, Stephen had been campaigning for a number of years, and there was a lot of people on the mailing list and a lot of people in the community.
Very large.
There was, I think, a supper club and a gong bath. And so lots of people were just wanting to meet each other, like people who were interested in psychedelics wanting to come together. And so in those early years, if you go to the Psychedelic Society UK platform now, you'll see just how many events they have. A lot of them not even necessarily directly related to psychedelics. And what we've really found, and I think where we've shifted our emphasis over the years from campaign work much more into community work and integration. And it's like, well, what does psychedelics give us? It gives us an opportunity to see the world and ourselves in a completely different and new way. And it kind of has this ability to strip away a whole bunch of conditioning and the layers and the hardening, right? It's kind of like that stuff no longer becomes possible often when we're in that psychedelic state. And so a lot of my work has come from that place of like, okay, well, how do you create that kind of transformation without psychedelics? Like, psychedelics is one aspect or one way of doing that. And there's loads of different methods that we can use.
I think it's a very familiar journey in this space, at least in terms of the part about going from recreational to it being ceremonial and moving into community. And a lot of, psychedelic societies have shifted their focus more towards that sort of community aspect, integration, creating that supportive mechanism. And I love that that's kind of how you came into relationship. Talk about for you personally, like how has it really had an effect on your life? Obviously, you've come on to new friendships, new relationships. What has it really meant in terms of your growth as a person?
I think it's very much gone hand in hand with the other practices that I've had alongside. So alongside meditation, alongside dance, it's opened up so much for me in terms of movement and dance, and actually using dance as a way to process stuck emotions, come to insights. I went through a period of a few years of taking mushrooms and ayahuasca, not at the same time, and just really like totally transforming my relationship with my body. And what I often find they can be really good for me is when I'm getting to a place of feeling a bit stuck or numb or dull or in some way disconnected from my mission. And even though I have a really strong mission, sometimes I can feel on a soul level a little disconnected from it, because the reality is I've got to send emails and do my social media and, do the spreadsheets. And that kind of admin has a way of pulling us away from the deeper why, right? And I find psychedelics help me to touch back into that deep place of purpose.
Mm.
I feel there's just this feeling, on the soul level of like, yes, this is my work and this is what I'm meant to be doing. And also in my relationship with Ronan, I'd say we do an acid trip maybe once. This is not plants, but does it still count?
No, whatever is you do want to share.
So we would do a trip together once or twice a year that we see it as sort of relational hygiene. And again, it's like whatever has accumulated over that time, and we're good at relational tending anyway. But again, it just has this incredible ability to drop us deep into our hearts and feel that soulful body, heart, yes, for each other.
It's beautiful. And I love that we're even talking about this aspect, not just in terms of how it can help create deeper relationship, right? And be used when used consciously. I'd argue also responsibly. But also how plants, I mean, obviously I can even if we talk about plants right now, right? I literally see 3 plants behind you. So maybe we'll allow the plants to have a little interlude here. So what about your relationship with plants and plant medicines?
When you say that question and when you talk about the plants in my background, it makes me think of the big oak trees in the field.
Ah, yes, because
So
you
I
also
have.
see is it an oak tree in front of you? I'm trying to recall.
I have 3 just across in the field opposite me. There's 3 really big oak trees, and there's one in particular who is like my dear friend. And right now, that tree feels like the biggest part of my plant medicine journey in this moment. It's a place that I go when I'm overwhelmed and I feel like I'm beyond capacity in whatever reason, like a personal crisis, whatever. Um, I feel like I can just get so much resource and calming and wisdom from being by that tree. And it also helps give me perspective. It's like, it must be more than 500 years old. Can help me remember that my problems are fairly small in the grand scheme of the history of, the earth and human lives.
And speaking of, like, 'cause, like, I definitely have relationship with my trees, like, the ones that give me that sense of time I live amongst the redwoods, which and they also have that sense of time. But the oak are just, we're right where redwood and oak meet, which is like, in by the shores of the sea. What would you say is your relationship to the oak? Is it because I think we also are aware of like ancestral connections to oak, right? And there's certain complexities involved with that.
Dartmoor is called Dartmoor because Dart means oak. Dart, door. It's an old Celtic word for oak. And there's a river, the River Dart, that runs all the way down to Dartmouth, the mouth of the Dart. So, yeah, where I live, where I work, there's a huge connection with the oaks. And also where I grew up, there was a massive oak tree also in the field opposite my house when I was a child. So having this oak tree here, it kind of has that link for me also back into that more innocent, um, childlike part of myself. And yeah, they're just magical. But I think actually it's much more it's specific oak trees. It's not just any old oak.
That's right. I would agree with that. I mean, even in being in a redwood forest right now, like I don't connect as deeply with all of them. It's usually particular ones. And we can talk about them being networked and things like that. But at the same time, like there are a couple particular ones and there are a couple particular relationships, right? And I love that it's like you said, like there's a few you can see out your window, right? But there's this one particular oak that's like you, or that one particular in your childhood.
Mhm.
Yeah. And those are sort of the relationships like that source us, that resource us, that are harder to communicate to people, I think, sometimes. But I also wanna keep up our dancing, right? Because like, I mean, I maybe I didn't appreciate enough how much we both have this love of dancing. So maybe we can bridge a little bit to our relationship and your work, and it was because of one of your workshops that we originally connected. And you probably know the name of the workshop better than I do, but it was like it was going through the archetypes, and it was going through feminine archetypes. Do you recall the name of the workshop?
It might have even been Psychedelic Women's Circle 4-week course or something like
Something like that, something like that.
or Archetypes of the Feminine 4-week course. I think I changed the name a few times as I like to always change things.
No, that's
Yeah, so we went through 5 different archetypes.
yeah, I was gonna say it was at least 5.
It was 5. It was the maiden, the warrior, the lover, the queen, and the priestess.
And for someone who had primarily, I would say still at that time, a primarily recreational relationship, and then was doing healing work myself at the time, the somatic aspect was really breathed to life, literally, with the healing work in my experience with you, and connecting to this sort of higher aspect of archetypes. Um, would you like to talk about, like, what are some of the benefits that you found with working with women in those sort of groups? I did find it very powerful and incredibly healing. It definitely had for a short period of time, definitely had deep connections with the women and a lot of vulnerability very quickly, that you're able to help support us to drop into.
I mean, I can talk about that till the cows come home, but I'm mostly curious to hear more of your experience, if you remember, because it was a long time ago now. 2020,
Yeah, 2020. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that feels right. It had to have been,
during COVID.
yeah, during COVID, which was also like an important time too. And actually, towards the end of your series, my brother had passed, and I got paired even at the last one of some of the last little gatherings with someone else, and she had just lost her father at the same time, and we end up being paired together. And there's like this sort of magic of those sort of things, and being able to be together in relationship to help us heal through that time, and having had that experience definitely helped prepare me, but
I didn't know that.
I love that there's so much beauty in your work, that it's not just about, sometimes people have these workshops and they're very functional, right? They're like, script, but I feel like you allow a lot of flow and experiential and exploration, even though there is this sense of structure to it. How do you balance out this sort of like deep archetypal healing work? How do you go about thinking through workshops, and how do you go about, curating that sort of group space over time?
Well, Sandra, I put together a whole 9-month course. How to do this?
Yeah, maybe we should get out all the biases out of the way, right?
But I can give a little nuggets,
Give
which
a
is
nugget, give a nugget, give a teaser, like why would people sign up for your facilitation course versus someone else's?
mm, I mean, in my heart, I'm an artist. And
Mhm.
I studied theatre at university, and I love creating experiences. I love myth. I love movement. I love ritual. I love loads of different kinds of things. And I have found that my own path has been meandering. And there are loads of different practices that have created huge shifts for me. And so, what I teach is usually what is exciting and alive for me, which is also how I guide other people in what their offering should be. It's like, well, what excites you? What do you love? What actually works? So the training program, you learn lots of different modalities. So you learn tools from meditation and embodiment and ritual and authentic connection. And then really you find your own way and your own path with it. Maybe you're more drawn to one of those pillars. Maybe there's something else entirely that you're bringing in. And so I don't teach in like there's a one size fits all this is the modality, this is how you do it. I think they're great, but the way that I teach is like, here's my theory of transformation. These are the different components that you need, which follows an arc. So almost all my sessions and workshops will follow sort of a similar arc, which is not too dissimilar from a psychedelic experience, right? Where you've got like setting the container, doing some warm up and connection and embodiment, reaching to a peak experience, kind of landing down from that, the integration work, and then the closing of the experience. So you can play around with each of those sections in so many different ways. And my passion really is about like getting to know the individuals and understanding, it's like, what's your journey? And how do we bring that out? Because the gift is in the wound. Whatever your wound is, like, that's where you look for the medicine, because you've lived that. So the authority that you have in that space is that you've lived it. And you can have compassion for people because you know what it's like to be there.
Mm-hmm. I think that's really beautiful. I mean, and the medicine, right? The medicine is in it, right? The medicine you find for yourself is a medicine for others, and the gift of the experience. And I love also that you started with the fact of passion, right? That passion in relationship and what comes up. Like, don't be fettered by what you think I'm supposed to do as a facilitator, but also think about what lights you up, and also connecting to your particular wounding, right? So it has this lovely balance of inspiration, but also the pain points, and embracing it. That sort of, those shadow, the typical shadow versus the golden shadow, right? Sort of aspects of it.
Yeah.
And
there's a huge emphasis on the inner work that's required to build the discernment, being able to see your own blind spots and the ways in which your stuff is likely to interfere with your work as a facilitator, as well as seeing, you mentioned golden shadow, right? So the brilliant parts of you that you also can't see that get reflected back to you through the group. We've actually just 2 days ago come back from the final weekend of Empower. So there's 3 residentials, and in the last one, they're put into groups of 3 and then collaborate to create a session on basically whatever they want. So there's a huge emphasis on creativity, thinking for yourself. It's like, I'm giving you the tools and I'm giving you the frameworks, but like, you go and do something that is you with it. Don't do what I do. Do what you do.
I love that. And which brings me back full circle to you talking about your mission. So what would you say is your mission or your vision that inspires you?
It is, it probably changes all the time how I would word this, but right now my mission is to support people to get free. And what I mean by that is the ability to be with what is, and not that it's like to trust in yourself, not to trust that everything is going to be okay, but to trust that even if it's not okay, I'm still there for me. That, and helping women in particular to just feel more confidence in themselves, and like they have value and what they have to say is important, and that their voice is needed.
And I certainly have received that from you in a relationship. So you're at least successful in your mission with me.
Yay!
So maybe this is a good opportunity to go beyond like how we met in the workshop and what I received in that workshop. And I love archetypes, and I love creativity, and I love dance. So I think there's a lot of alignment with that. But it took some time before I came back, I think, to kind of knock at your door and realize I needed, more support and work and healing. And it's so funny. I'm like, I can't even remember the beginning part of that story. Like it seems so natural. I mean this in the sense of like, it seems so natural, a natural evolution of our relationship. Because I also admired you as a leader. And I think women in leadership positions, but all people in leadership positions, who are doing it well, who are holding it well, right? They tend to be the same people who aren't trying to focus on the fact that they're leaders, and they're good at it. So I certainly admired your leadership, your heart-centered leadership and spirit and all the above, right? Like I love the fact that you bring in this element of full embodiment, right? You're hitting, for me at least, it's hitting all the notes. Like from the body to the spirit to the heart to the healing, right? And is a sort of this sort of dance, inspirational dance, and being able to dance even in I sort of like I think it was an anger exercise, like like I mean I know people have heard ones like this before where you yell at the pillow and like we're smacking down and like full body like strikes. Which it has like even in the moments where you're expressing a negative, right? As it were, people negative, right? There's a freedom in it, an expression in it, and a somatic in it. And there's and this balance of that physical embodiment with conversation and connection is really beautiful in your leadership. So I just want to acknowledge you as a leader.
Thank you. Feels so lovely to hear.
And and I love also that I have the opportunity to let you shine a bit, especially since you've helped me to shine as a leader. And I think it's a special calling when you're called to help leaders be leaders.
We're gonna take a moment to pause and actually celebrate you even calling yourself a leader and owning that with ease.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel seen and heard too. And to that point you were saying about looking at blind spots, right? That I feel like it's so essential as leaders and I think as a facilitator you are a leader too, right? Even if you see yourself like, oh, I'm just working one-on-one with people, like people who are, paying attention to the show, right? That is a leadership position. And that doesn't mean that, you're telling the person what to do, right? It can be that holding space leadership. But I think it's been beautiful for me to experience your leadership, holding my leadership, and helping me to be accountable, and helping me to see my blind spots. Even in this moment in this podcast, you're helping me to recognize and see how I've grown in terms of being able to recognize leadership. So I at least want to make that transparent and also give you an opportunity to speak on working with me on the opposite side, for me to not to demand you receive from me, but to like, what's it been like working with me? What can you give other people insights into like what it's like working with me? Like, I'm giving you permission. Okay, you have my consent. You don't have to go into.
Well, I guess you can always edit the bits that you don't want.
Always edit. We can always edit, but I tend to go edit light. But
Well, I was actually going to ask you that question because I wonder if it would be a more powerful for you to at least start that in where you feel some of the core shifts have happened, particularly for you around power and receiving.
yeah, power and receiving. Power was what came up, I think what I was handling more initially, right? That I felt very uncomfortable with it because I had this association with power being abuse, power being control, and being less of myself, not more of myself, less of my authentic self, and less freedom. And as I worked through that with you, and also through my dominatrix training, which I think I'm public about that. I sometimes laugh when I mention it because, like, I don't think everyone knows. um, but we spent a lot more time working on my ability to receive, and honestly, it surprised me how much needed to come and be unpacked around that. And what financially, like, because we went from doing some healing work to like, okay, I need to work on receiving abundance and receiving more from my work. And I feel like I've worked through things, but I'm clearly hitting a block still, right? And so that's what we've spent a lot of time working through.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember some of our earlier sessions, we mapped out all of the places where you were spreading yourself and
I
your
still
energy.
have that map. I still have that map. I still pull it
How,
down to
yeah,
find myself of where I was.
and how much you were giving and how little was coming back.
Yeah.
And one of the first things we did was actually to look at, it's like, okay, where can we actually draw back some of this energy into you And one of the things I love about you is how big a heart you have and how much you want to help and support people. But that recognition of like, well, I can't keep going like this. And where do you need to actually cut back and set more boundaries in place to be able to then do the work that is right for you to be doing at this time with with a full heart and being resourced.
Yeah, I really love that. I will say that that was a very clarifying exercise for me way back in the beginning when we were looking at it. Like just having literally put pen to paper and seeing all the places and seeing what I was, and I would even say it's an accountability exercise, like to actually go through and look at like, okay, where am I giving? And just like write all that down and actually it was a thought bubble type of thing for people. Like so it's like it had like me at the center, and then I put on little circles, all the different things that I was giving to. And then we were then doing an accounting, as it were, of seeing what I was receiving from each of them and what the energy exchange really looked like. Regardless of doing anything else after that point, just seeing it so clearly that it made it so crystal to me that I was giving and not receiving in balance, you know.
Yeah, in quite an extreme way.
Very extreme, very extreme. And it made it clear to me that it was toxic to me, right? It made it very clear that it was toxic to me. And I think it helped me to see giving in a new way because, like, I mean, I don't know about everyone else, but like for me, I feel like I was taught to give and not receive. And maybe it's some term toxic conceptions from social stuff about what feminine should or should not be doing. And masculines too, right? You should take care of everyone and not take care of you type of stuff. And so I thought I was doing good. I thought I was doing good. And I'm not saying good didn't come of what I give, but I wasn't giving from a place of abundance. And I was,
Reciprocity, actually.
or even reciprocity, or even basic reciprocity. Yeah. I mean, like, it was all the things. It was like, even when I was in a healthier place, I mean, I wouldn't say I was like totally unhealthy at the time.
But even recognizing that link for you, I don't know if you want to talk about this, but
Go ahead.
the link between receiving and safety.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That was a huge click for me too. That part of it was, like, if we don't have to say inner child, but like this aspect of protecting myself, because I felt like that was the only way I could keep myself safe as well, which was a hidden aspect that I think took that in part to reveal.
Yeah, the not feeling safe, it not being safe to receive.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have that same experience,
Yeah.
that it then means something, or it's going to lead to some, like either that there's I'm not talking about you now, but just
No, I gotta get into it. Oh, okay.
like either it's a worth thing,
Yeah.
I deserve it,
Yeah.
or it's well, if I receive, then I'm gonna have to give something back, or then there'll be consequences for that. It's not just it's not a gift that there isn't that safety to receive.
Yeah, which,
I noticed the big shift in you when we kind of untangled that piece around the receiving and safety.
I agree. I think that really was, yeah, that was I think if I had to pick a biggest shift, that would probably be one of them in working with you. Where you just, oh, that was it. That was the hidden belief that was connected to these other things and other actions and other choices that I was making. So maybe I should make sure I'm taking a moment of gratitude for all the accountability and leaning in and coaching. I know I paid you for that time. And now we're doing more of an exchange for what it's worth, right? And actually I'm going to be helping for that workshop coming up. Or it's actually occurring ongoing, the 9-month process. I'm phase 3. But
I'm really excited. Happy with that.
yeah. But I've loved to watch our own relationship evolve through all of it and allowing it to dance with us, and our ability to check in with each other and to see where we're at and have those conversations. I think it's where a lot of work is going,
Mm.
and we don't have a lot of great models for it. And even as I try and speak of it now, I have difficulty trying to communicate what it's like to be in this kind of relationship, other than to talk about this idea that I've been talking to people about ecosystem of relationship. So it's hard for me to convey what it means to be in an ecosystem of relationship and what it's like to go through growth cycles together over time and nurture the relationship and how that dynamic shifts, and being present for and allowing for that growth to happen. I think we're taught so much in at least a Western view. This is the strict structure that we're going to be in, and this is how we're going to relate, and that's it, right? And now, granted, I don't want to say like we should have a totally loose and no boundaries, right? It's not that there's no boundaries. If you go the other extreme would say, look, oh, you're saying like not to have any structure. Like, no, no, no. It's allowing a bit of both, just like a plant has and a tree has structured growth, right? But it still is allowed to grow. It's still allowed to shift. It's still allowed to change and evolve over time. And I think sometimes the challenge is that we don't create space for each other in relationships, for that growth, for that change. And this is just my way of appreciating that about you and about us and our relationship. And I'm seeing it in all of your relationships. And I'm starting to notice it more now as how I approach things. And I know I've been encouraged towards that mindset by you. So I just want to recognize and acknowledge that source for me in relationship.
Yeah.
And as we kind of come to a close in this conversation, what recommendations or advice would you give people, whether they work with psychedelics or not, in terms of doing this internal work or transformation, or people who are curious, like what kind of guidance or support, or even as a facilitator, a new facilitator who's coming to this space, what advice would you give people?
I think so much of my resource and learning comes from peer support.
Mm,
So having, whether that is a small group of people who share a similar practice to you, to come together and share kind of regularly, both like what is going well and I think for maybe in group work it's a little bit different, but I know in like the one-to-one work I do, because it's so private, often I don't really have someone to celebrate. Like no one really knows what happens, right, in the
right.
setting.
I resonate with that. Yeah.
And to have a place where you can both celebrate what's going well and also be vulnerable and talk about the challenges, and get reflection and get advice and get support. For me, working with like a coach or supervisor, somebody who knows you well and who you trust, and yeah, it can take time to build that relationship, who can help you see your blind spots and help you sense check. I have my dear mentor Elle Rosenthal. She kind of supervises my work, and sometimes it gets crunchy in a retreat context, and sometimes I'm like, I did my best, and actually I don't know, could I have done something different? What am I not seeing here? And so having her to sense check things against and help me to see where my blind spots are as well as where the golden shadows are is incredible, because it also means like, well, I don't feel like I'm holding it all on my own and I have to get it quote unquote right.
Yes.
If I don't get it right, it means I'm bad and wrong. And seeing it as like it's nuanced work, and particularly in the realm of working with psychedelics or any kind of transformational process, you're supporting people into spaces where they are vulnerable.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of unknowns. And shit goes down. Can I say that? Stuff goes down. Having a place where you can kind of offload and sense check, and also be able to then, course correct if is needed, or if repair work is needed, to have somebody talk through it with you of like, well, what would that repair process look like? I know so much of your work is about this, and that's the ethical practice. And I think that part of ethical practice and resourced practice is having peers, mentors, people who can hold you accountable and also really support you and help you out.
Yeah, I love that you bring that up because I think sometimes people think you just need the peers or the mentors. But it's like, no, it's what kind of function are they serving for you? What kind of relationship are you actually creating? Are you just going to a peer support circle once a month, right? With no real accountability, with no real, or a deeper relationship with those mentors. Like, you went and saw a mentor. Well, that's different, someone you look up to versus actually having that active relationship where that accountability also provides support. I think that's the other thing is like I think sometimes people think it's all stick. It's like it's not about the stick.
No way. In fact, it shouldn't be stick in my
Should be stick. I think it should be carrot.
Yeah, it's not about being told off it, but it's more like, okay, well that happened. How was that for you? And maybe this is what's interacting with maybe let's say it might be like, oh, is this participant or client or whoever it is, like, are they reminding you of someone in your childhood? Is there something there for you? Or, oh wow, look how much pressure you're putting on yourself to have like made this a perfect experience for somebody, and that's just really unrealistic and unfair to put those standards on yourself. Or sometimes I'll share with someone like, okay, this thing happened. What are your reflections for me, and what would you have done in that situation? And
Right.
it can just be so valuable and interesting, and with my with the people who are peers who I do that with, they're my friends essentially.
Right.
There's a level of intimacy
That's right.
that we deepen into, and actually those friendships become more solidified because we have a shared experience in our mission and what we're doing. And then also it's vulnerable to say, hey, I think maybe I made a mistake here, or I didn't really know what to do. This is what I did. What do you think? To have the humility to do that.
And I think that's so essential, that the humility to do that, the intimacy to do that, and that it's not about creating those sort of stick moments. It's about, creating those supportive moments to be able to look at that wounding. I mean, I don't want to call it nurturing necessarily the wound, right? Like it's more about, having a safer space to look at those woundings or those experiences, even to notice like, hey, are you feeling wounded right now? Right. Or when you're coming with a rupture, right? And I know I've come with you with ruptures and talking about how to handle it and how to address it or look at it. And even in those moments where I know I've made an oversight. We'll say it that way, right? Like, a place of, we like to call them growth edges because like, we don't, it's not that we wouldn't conventionally call them mistakes, but that we also see the wisdom in them, right? The lesson in them, like what you're saying earlier about the pain being the gift. And this rupture repair work that you do with people and in relationship and in leadership is so essential and important to model. And I love that you're sharing that.
And again, like what the other person can do, because when I've been in rupture, my nervous system is like, oh, it gets right.
Wow.
And often when I'm working with people, like you're coming in with, you're inflamed in some way. There's all these stories, and the other person can act as the regulated nervous system.
That's
Who
right.
just slows everything down and helps you to unpick it and look at the different layers and going, okay, well, where's your stuff in this? Where maybe are they doing something? How do we bring curiosity to this rather than jumping into a conclusion that, oh, well, I know what this person meant. It's like, well, actually, do we have enough information there?
Yeah.
Most of the time, no. Most of the time, you've created a story about what's going on. So much I could say about getting supervision and peer support. There we go. That's my
No, but I love that, like this is kind of the note we're kind of wrapping on because we've had that relationship and I know it's shifting into more, it's been more peer related, but still even as peers, like I don't know what real relationship to me is about, right? It's not about just, celebrating and having fun and it is all those things, but it's also about leaning into those spaces and being there for each other when you need it, right?
Yeah.
And including the sort of tough love moments that are done with love, not with anger or any other sort of spirit.
Yeah. And I think, particularly for newer people going into this work, there can be so much fear around
Yeah.
getting something wrong or traumatizing somebody. And like, of course, we want to go really, really delicately and take that really seriously. And what the peer group or the supervision or whatever can do is it's like, I don't have to have all the answers on my own.
That's right. And I think it's essential that we don't have know that you don't have all the answers. Oh, you're not supposed to do it alone. You're never doing anything alone.
To be honest, don't trust someone who thinks they've got all the answers.
Yeah, don't trust that. Yeah, that's a red flag. Red flag everywhere.
Just accept that there are gonna be times where my mentor uses this word, where you're unskillful.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, unskillful. Yeah.
There are gonna be moments where you're unskillful. So just accept that and then plan for how you're gonna meet that.
That's exactly right.
And when you've got the plan and when you've got the support, then it doesn't feel so intimidating.
That's right. One of my mentors says, like, it may not be that you've failed, right? It may be, or that your vision is incorrect. It may be that the strategy or your approach has been incorrect. And revisiting from that, getting new perspective on it, being more compassionate towards ourselves and each other, and even just knowing where the Achilles heels are. I think it has been so essential to my work. Like, I know I'm going this Achilles heel area of receiving is something that is going to take me time. But I'm very grateful for receiving from you today and every day I get to interact with you, Gaia. And for being generous with your time to help others receive from you and wisdom from you. How can people get in touch with you if they want to reach out to you or learn more about your work?
Yeah, so you can find me at GaiaHarvey-Jackson.com. That's GAIA Harvey. That's also my Instagram handle. Quite easier to find, I think. It's quite an unusual name. And I also have an organization called True Nature, and we are a platform for feminine and ecological empowerment. And we are truenature.org.uk. So yeah, you can find out more about me on my website, and then there's a lot more information about the different kind of group programs that I run, and that also some of my other dear friends and trusted facilitators also run through that program, so through that platform. So yeah.
Well, definitely check her out. I mean, I obviously could not recommend you higher, but I'm biased, heavily, heavily biased. Through joy and love and healing. Thank you, Gaia, and thank you for being a leader in my life.
Thank you, Sandra. So great to finally get a chance to chat for the full hour.
Thanks for being here with me today. If this resonated with you, subscribe wherever you listen and share it with someone else on their journey. And if you're ready to go deeper, take the free Inner Source assessment at innersourcepodcast.com. It'll help you discover exactly what kind of inner work you need right now and where to start. Until next time, remember that everything you're searching for is already within you.